My name is Amy May. This is a family perspective. I would be honored to think I speak for all of the families affected by leukodystrophy. Our son Dylan died 11 years ago, and he would be 16 years old now. I have never shared all of this information in public before, so I'm going to record this from home so you all don't have to watch me cry and become a blubbering mess. I'm going to try to get through this to honor Dylan's life by helping those who walk behind. You guys, the care coordinators, are the single most important piece of that. If I can help you all understand the family perspective, then your efforts will have the ripple effect through all the families who have the devastating diagnosis of leukodystrophy. What do the families want? What we want is help for our child. We all want the best for our child, the best life, the best love, the best care. Our concerns for our child are both complex yet very simple. We want our child to live and be loved while he can. Sometimes that means driving an hour each way for 45 minutes of therapy 3 times per week while getting a babysitter for our other kids. It needs to be understood that interventions are a sacrifice that we are happy, sometimes determined to make. However, sometimes what's best for our child and family is to go to the zoo instead. Our time with our child is limited and it needs to be well spent and intentional. We probably can't articulate it, but we need balance. Sometimes that means incorporating little therapies into our daily routine so we don't need so many appointments. A key component of quality of life is actually living life. We need to do things with our family, make memories, take photos, take videos. We need to have no regrets after our child dies. We need to believe that we are doing everything that is best for our child from both a medical and a quality of life standpoint. We spent over 4 years looking for a captain of the ship. That's even what Phil and I called it. It did not exist, but that is now you. As an aside, I wanted to call your position care captains. I was outvoted, but that's how I think of you guys. You guys are captains of the ships, and you have the power to steer, guide, direct, and produce change. I thank God that these families have you for guidance and direction. Our lives now revolve around our child's illness. Nothing is left unaffected. This is something you should realize as you talk to us. This devastating disease affects everything in our lives, well beyond our child. Our time, our marriage, our other children, our finances, our sleep, our job and career, our health, relationships with extended family, friendships, everything. We are likely to be overwhelmed and exhausted, physically, mentally, and emotionally. This can make it hard for us to process information and make decisions. It's easy to become isolated. Social situations can be hard. Normal things that people talk about seem petty and stupid when you're dealing with life and death. We, the families, are grieving. There's no way around that, and it's important in your interactions with families to understand that. We may not have named it grief yet, and probably do not know how to manage it, but grief is there, like a heavy, cold, wet, thorny, painful cloak. We have all been told that our child is going to die, an early, terrible death. The reality of what that looks like can hit us like a sucker punch to the face. It can be caused by anything, anywhere. For example, we might be walking through the grocery store and see a display of school supplies and suddenly realize, oh my God, my child is never going to kindergarten. With leukodystrophy, the grief doesn't start when our child dies. It starts when they are diagnosed. That's when the losses start to occur. We as parents slowly realize the many, many things that are never going to happen for our child. The list is too long to even begin. We handle grief in different ways. Even within the same family, it is different for different people. Phil had a need to talk about it. He wanted to acknowledge both the elephant in the room and his son. He felt disloyal to not talk about it. I, on the other hand, wanted to avoid talking about it unless I happened to want or need to. So for me, what that looked like is that I couldn't tell any one person the whole story. I did not and could not update and tell every friend everything that was going on. But when I needed to talk and someone called or came over, that's who I talked to. Oftentimes it was one of our caregivers. It could be the hospice nurse who came about once a week, or Dylan's physical therapist, or his occupational therapist, or his social worker, or it might be this friend or that friend. For the LCN families, it is quite likely to be you, because you are on the front lines with the family and you have a better understanding than anyone else they know. I found it easier to write down what we called the Dylan update and email it to friends and family. I was trying to avoid the grocery store question. Picture being in the grocery store and you see someone from church that you know. You've heard that our son is sick, but you don't know all the details. So being the thoughtful person that you are, you ask, how is Dylan doing? At that point, I have a choice to make. I can say something like, he's doing okay, but that's an absolute lie. I can also say the actual truth, which, if we're being completely honest, is not at all what the person wants to hear. The truth that day might be, since I saw you last, Dylan has gone blind. For me, the truth wasn't speakable in the grocery store. It was too much for me. As if it's not hard enough to live with the truth day in and day out, just add to that being forced to answer a casual question with the truth of your worst nightmare. I don't know about you, but I don't like to cry in the grocery store. Once I started crying, it would kind of continue on and off the rest of the day. When that happened, I would feel physically hungover for the whole day and perhaps into the next day. The people we meet in healthcare are typically dedicated and wonderful, but not all of them, mind you. This is their job, but this is our life. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for as long as our child lives. We don't get to go home at night and be done. We don't get to take a vacation from this. It is always there. It's exhausting, overwhelming, infuriating, and downright sad. We may not be sleeping or eating or able to work. There are lots of things for us to fear. We are literally living our worst nightmare, knowing our child will die and we are powerless to stop it. We may fear that a decision we make will shorten the life of our child. We may also fear losing our job, then losing our home, losing our spouse, current and long-term effects on our other children. We may fear our own physical decline. We may have actual injuries from lifting or holding our child. We use our own bodies to compensate for the weakness in our child's body. We may not be able to do that indefinitely. What would we do then? We may fear our mental and emotional problems, such as depression and anxiety, or perhaps addiction. Problems can snowball. Our situation makes us unavoidably afraid and anxious, which can make us not sleep, which makes us too tired to exercise, which makes us gain weight, which makes our heart work overtime. We can get depressed, and so on, and so on, and so on. The emotional toll on the parents cannot be overemphasized. I had a t-shirt that said, "I'm out of bed and dressed. What more do you want from me?" Getting up every day felt like an accomplishment. It's important for the care coordinators to understand their families. So when you see a mom who seems like a wreck, it's because she is, and she has a right to be. I have often been asked, "Are you taking care of you?" What does that mean, and how do I do it? As the captain of the ship, it's important for you to speak to this issue. You've heard the saying, "If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy." With the leukodystrophy diagnosis, we've had to lower the bar from happy to survival. So, if mama ain't okay, ain't nobody okay. In other words, if mom and dad collapse under the strain, the whole house of cards goes down. We need to hear that it's okay, expected, and even necessary to do things for our own health and well-being. We may be able to totally ignore ourselves and our health for the sprint, but not for the marathon. We need to hear that it's okay to laugh again. The cloak of grief that we wear is mostly invisible. Sometimes we're able to take it off for a short time. We need to be encouraged to not feel guilty about that and enjoy it while it lasts. Dylan was diagnosed when he was 8 months old. We were told that the average life expectancy is 14 months, but death is certain by age 2. When we heard that, we heard, "My son is likely to die in the next 6 months, but he is for sure going to die in the next 16 months. We needed to hunker down and love on him and watch him die and make sure to be there when he does. We were afraid to leave him. You can do anything for only 6 months. However, Dylan lived for 4 years, 3 months, and 2 days after his diagnosis. We were told to expect a sprint, but we needed to prepare for a marathon. At some point after Dylan passed the average life expectancy of 14 months, we made a conscious choice to live life with him. We didn't have the LCN to help us articulate that. We were still trying to convince each healthcare professional to treat Dylan like he was worth it. It was very hard as a grieving parent to weed out and get rid of the care providers who didn't support the belief that our son was worth it. So, what is the actual life expectancy for each leukodystrophy? I don't know the answer. Even if I did find it in print somewhere, I would question it. How old is the information? Where did it come from? Did it include both transplanted and non-transplanted children? What was the population size? We can't process all these questions at that time, but we will ask you the question, how long will he live? It might be more helpful for us to hear, a study has shown this, fill in the blank, but we don't know. Every child is different. We can prepare for the worst, but let's hope for the best. In the meantime, let's live the best life possible. This isn't over when it's over. It's never really quite over because you don't get over the death of your child. However, it does get better, so there's hope in that. We used the words before and after a lot in our family. You might think the before and after relates to Dylan's death, but it actually relates to his diagnosis. That's when life as we knew it ceased to exist. Our lives crashed further but differently when Dylan died. We have had a lot of struggles in our family with the other three children since Dylan's diagnosis. It's hard to say which of these struggles relate back to Dylan's illness, but it's quite possible that all of them do. In counseling terms, our other children have experienced trauma. As each child reacted in their own way to the grief and trauma by acting out, it created further trauma for the other kids. In getting help for the other three children, we found that you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We can take them to 100 counseling appointments, but we can't control whether or not they decide to open up and process their emotions and heal from the trauma. We feel lucky to still be married. Statistically, we shouldn't be. The wound will get better, but it's never gone. 11 years later, it's still not gone. With time, there will be a scab over the wound. Sometimes we know what will knock off the scab, and sometimes it happens unexpectedly. It can be a song or a person or a phrase or an event or a memory. When the scab is removed, we bleed again. How can I help in thinking outside the box? Have you seen the show New Amsterdam? It's about a hospital administrator named Max who thinks outside the box. In every episode, Max listens to his people, then says the words, "How can I help?" Then he comes up with some crazy and brilliant plan and implements it. Full disclosure, he always gets in trouble for spending too much money. So here's what we can learn from that show. Listen to the problem, ask, "How can I help?" Think of a creative solution, implement the solution, follow up and adapt the solution if necessary, because they don't all work. You, the care coordinators, are on the front lines of leukodystrophy care. You guys have the power to change lives. I encourage you to think outside the box. Most of therapy is not rocket science. Families can be taught to do therapeutic activities. Encourage them to learn from their therapist by watching, taking notes, and using video. You can encourage them to incorporate helpful activities into their daily routine. This could potentially save them money and time. Time has never been more precious than now. If families can spend less time on appointments, traveling to and fro, and hanging out in waiting rooms, they can make more memories and live more life with their child. Medical equipment costs a lot of money. I am no expert on how to find the money through insurance or other funding. However, we did do a lot of creative adapting to make Dylan comfortable. We like to think in our own little way that we were thinking outside the box, but we have no medical expertise. We didn't want Dylan to miss out on being in the pool since it was the main activity of our family all summer. Phil made this chair out of PVC pipe and an existing bath chair. We used recliners with strategically placed pillows to make Dylan comfortable instead of spending so much time in his kid cart, which he did not tolerate well. Regular toys can be adapted into simple switch toys. We stuffed tube socks with dried beans to use as supports or positioning devices. Encourage communication and crossover among the therapeutic disciplines. There are PT activities that the OT can use also, and vice versa. Listen to the parents. They probably have no medical training, but they have more information on their child than anyone else. Consider the possibility they are correct. We lost Dylan's smile for months because of a medication. We asked the doctors if it could be due to the medication addition. They consistently said no, it's progression of the disease. We tried a different medicine, and Dylan got a little half smile back. But those lost months of that precious smile could never be recovered. You care coordinators have already started sharing creative ideas amongst yourselves. Keep that up. When someone has a great idea, you guys can be the dissemination point. Encourage families to receive help in their time of need. We could give families a handout of things other people could actually do to be helpful. The list could have tasks such as yard work, house cleaning, bringing meals, babysitting other kids, errands, carpools, other kid appointments, etc. Many people really want to help but have no idea where to start. They ask, "What can I do?" but never do anything. It is hard for the family to answer with, "I need you to do this for me." But if we create a handout of how to support a grieving family, they could pass it along without it being awkward. Individual families should not be recreating the wheel. That is what the LCN is for. You already have a lot of information and great ideas, so let's get it to the families who need it so they can spend their time making memories instead of doing research to solve problems. Here's some advice you can pass along to families. Be your child's advocate. No one knows your child like you do. Ask all the questions you need to ask. Accept help from where it's offered. Nurses, therapists, friends, family, church, or just random people. There is no trophy for going it alone or being independent while living through your worst nightmare. Accept that people come in and out of your lives. Try not to get hung up on the ones who disappoint you, and be grateful for the ones that pleasantly surprise you. There's no book telling friends or family how to handle this with you. Your friends and family will make mistakes that offend you, but try to forgive. It's not good to go this alone. All patients with leukodystrophy are different. There's no gospel. These are best practices, and there's no black and white. There are a million shades of gray. Try to let go of the question why. Why my child? Why my family? There's not an answer to that question that will satisfy you. Sometimes the choice is to laugh or cry. Choose laughter. There are so many things to cry about, so let's laugh when we can. And do not feel guilty for laughing. It will help you survive. Choose joy whenever possible. Sometimes you just can't, but when you can, do not feel bad about it. Choose hope. Choose life and live it. Choose gratitude. There's always someone worse off than you. That is hard to believe sometimes. It seems that life goes on normally for other people while you are stuck in your worst nightmare. Look for the good in the little moments. Choose no regrets. If you think you might regret not trying something, then do it. Get the information to make the best decision you can, and then know that you did the best you could for your child and family with what you had to work with. You're always working with incomplete information, but this is your child, and you know your child better than anyone. Live life to the fullest extent possible with your child and family. Sometimes that means going to the park instead of therapy. Do not feel bad about it. You know best what your child and family needs. We don't want another child sent home to die while their parents sit around and watch. We don't want any more parents searching for information on their own that could have been shared with them. We want help for the families who will never be the same. We want every child with leukodystrophy to live their best life possible. We want that life to be filled with love and hope. These children are worthy of our best efforts and yours. Thank you for listening.